All right, gents, thank you for taking some time and talking with us today. Kane, I wanted to start out with you. We have a little Crow reunion going on. Crow reunion?
Yes.
So with the tragedy that happened on set, being the year stunt coordinator, what did you see, any changes from it that happened?
I mean, you know, no major changes, just some more careful analysis of stunts before they're done. I mean, that happens every time somebody dies on the set. If it's a stunt person or an actor, people will kind of unfortunately get real diligent about stuff for a while, and then it kind of fades away again. But each time it happens, though, it does bring it to a better level.
So I guess we could just start with, if each of you would go ahead and talk about how you first became involved with Friday the 13th series.
I'll start. Everybody's a little nervous up here.
Yeah.
So, you know, to us, we tell this story on a regular basis, but it is with passion each time. I mean, I was very fortunate managing a nightclub, working with some people from special effects that have done part 4, and then you put in the wardrobe and then ultimately cast. I wasn't fortunate to have the background as Kane does of stunts and what he had learned actually on his own, if I recall, because he wanted to attend the school, but he learned everything OJT, on the job training. But I got a chance to take the part, and I've never looked back, and to this day, 31 years later, so appreciative of what Kane has done and you as the fans have done to keep it going iconically. So, you know, thank you.
I mean, it's fairly obvious that we wouldn't be in the position we're in without the fans, of course. You guys are the ones that make us get to certain levels with support and, you know, stuff like that. So I certainly, and I know most of the other guys I know, certainly would never ignore the fact that we know why we're here. Not because we're some great person, but the fans have lifted us to a level. And, you know, was that BJ doing something funny? I call him BJ, but it's for a different reason.
Yeah, I guess I got involved before these guys got involved, and I'm just, every time I come out to one of these conventions, I'm still in shock and disbelief at what this brand has evolved into becoming. And yes, and that is a result of the patronage, the support of the fans that have made this what it is, so that in my case, I'm living in denial, so it's really hard for me to talk about something that was 30 years ago, I don't know, or 25 years ago, let's say 25 years ago. And as far as, you know, I was in school in New York, and I don't know, you get an agent, and then the agent, you know, had a call for, I guess, kids that were going to be the camp counselors at Crystal Lake. And they asked, yeah, you want to go in and read for it? Well, sure. So, you know, when I went in and read for it, I'm not sure which part, whether it was the John Fury part, but I don't know. I was reading for one of the parts. And then I think in the final furlong, they said, hey, well, why don't we get you involved as Jason? And at that time, you know, Jason, you know, like, didn't really exist. You didn't really know anything about it. And
So basically what you're saying is they looked at you and said, we got to put a sack on this motherfucker.
And you don't complain. When somebody wants you to do anything, you're like overwhelmed. Somebody's even including you in something. And so, yeah, next thing you know, you are overwhelmed. You're on the set at Camp Crystal Lake. Georgetown Productions is making it in Kent, Connecticut. And you're like so excited, you don't know what to do with yourself. And you're looking at all the people involved, and you're like, oh my God. You're looking at some of the actresses that you're working with. You're going, oh Lord. And, you know, the Kristen Baker running around doing the scene in the lake. I thought that I'd like die and go to heaven. I said, wow, this could be my break to get involved as an actor. It was unbelievable. So now here we are now. You all have made this into such an incredible brand, and I'm just flattered to be part of it. going to say.
And I think it was different. Warrington, when he started, the franchise wasn't really a franchise yet. He did,
Right.
you know, the second one. By the time CJ and I came along, it was already well established. The character was more established. So for us, I think it was probably even more of an honor because this is something that people know around the world, the character even, especially. And now we're the guys putting the mask on. Can you even imagine, as a fan, which I was, I think CJ was, a fan of horror films and the Friday movies, now I'm the guy that's going to be putting the mask on and doing everything. That you have to imagine how incredible that felt, and it still does.
So do you guys each remember what the first scene you shot as Jason was?
My first scene was the scene where Jason steps into frame of camera, profile vision, and the motorhome behind me shaking, and I turn and look at it, just kind of give it a slant and take off towards it. Very first scene I ever stepped on as a Screen Actors Guild union member, and that was it. The rest has been history from that perspective of, you know, looking back and saying, wow, we did that. We're part of this iconic image.
And mine was in part 7, of course, there's a scene where Tina has a vision when they're in the house of me stabbing Bill Butler, who's here. And it's just, you know, I have the tent stake through his body and he's coughing up blood and I'm standing behind him. That's the very first shot I ever did as Jason. And obviously you realize that films are shot completely out of sequence from how they're run. So that was the very first thing I ever did. And I have tried so hard to remember my final shot as Jason because I didn't know, you know, at the end of Jason X, I didn't know that I wouldn't be doing it anymore. I thought I was, and so I didn't really pay attention to the very last shot I ever did as Jason, but I'd like to try and find that out because that'd be kind of interesting too.
Well, you all know my shot, so when I got up there, yeah, they were shooting the window sequence like when I arrived. That was the first one they decided they wanted to do. And I was a little bit shocked first. You're getting ready for it, so you have to arrive at a barber, and he said, we're going to shave your head. I was like, what? Well, we'll feather your hair a little bit. Like, what? You know, when you're young, that's a big deal. You know, you don't want to lose, you know, whatever. So then you get sent to a dentist, and the dentist is going to have to do a cast of your mouth because then they want to adopt all the most horrific problems you could have dentally. I'm like, what? And then that goes in your mouth, and it totally gets your bite disjointed. And then they're building a face on you. Each prosthetic is going on, and your jaw is wide open. The whole thing. And yeah, I had never jumped through a window before. So you had to act like, yeah, there's no problem, no problem, no problem. I'm still a little bit confused because to this day, I do not know what a pulley is hooked on my ass. I guarantee you, there was no pulley on my ass parking me that then throw me through the window. I guarantee you that did not happen. So,
Maybe he should be BJ.
You know, I know what
Maybe he should be BJ.
I know.
Talking about his ass and awful lot.
No, I mean, I know
Sounds
that.
like he fits that nickname better than you do.
I don't know
so.
what a winch is. I don't know how to be hoisted with your ass up to a tree and a winch goes and throws you through a window. Come on, that did not happen. I know exactly. I have 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. Boom. So I'm not the stunt man he is, but I try.
But for me, also, speaking about stunts, I, as you know, got burned doing a fire stunt my first year in the stunt business and went on to do many more fire stunts, so I'm pretty fucking stupid. But it's one thing for a stunt person to be set on fire. Now, CJ allowed the stunt coordinator to set him on fire as Jason in the lake, which to me is pretty impressive that you don't know anything about fire at the time. You have to trust in the stunt coordinator's ability to say, hey, this is how it's going to work. And it looked great, but for a stunt person to do it is one thing. For an actor, it's different.
Going back to the opening part, you know, Kane would have been like a stunt coordinator because he's done it. And he's coming to a non-professional of the stunt industry and explaining what's going to transpire, how the race car suit, I call it, is going to be on, how you're going to feel the heat. You've got about so many seconds. You know, when you see the planes come over the front of the hockey mask, and you're wondering about, well, how long do I stay at this before I go underwater? I am dependent upon his expertise and some of my own stupidity, to be fair, right? You know, that I'm doing it. But at the end of the day, you know, the challenge was there, but I had the greatness, you know, of a man named Michael Nomad or a Kane Hodder covering my ass to make sure I wasn't, you know, hurt. So it's an experience, but I can mark it up and say I did it. It's on my bucket list.
Right, and one thing made it easier for him to be on fire because he was in the water. So immediately if you start feeling too much heat, he could go under. So that part of it, as a stunt coordinator, made you feel better about the act of doing it. But the big thing that you don't realize until you are a stunt coordinator is that's the guy that made the decision whether CJ was going to be on fire or if they were going to get a stunt guy to do it. So as a stunt coordinator, you get an impression from an actor whether you think they can pull it off or not. And just the fact that the coordinator, Mike, did have the confidence in him, that's impressive in itself, because this is the stunt coordinator's reputation online. Sure, it's his body online, but it's a reputation. If you are a stunt coordinator and you have an actor get hurt doing a stunt, that is not good. So he had to have the confidence that CJ could do it correctly and calmly, because it is a weird thing to not freak out when you're on fire. So as a coordinator, he had to feel comfortable.
That's great.
So obviously, Jason, each of you had to put your own little touch on it. How did you guys get prepared for a character like that? Did you sequester yourself from the cast? Anything that you guys did to try to really gain a reaction from the cast?
Well, I personally, you probably know this if you read the book or whatever, I always kept distance from the actors, if I had the mask on especially. I'm not going to stand there with the actors with the hockey mask on talking to them. If we're going to discuss a scene because there's some action involved, I'll have the mask off and do that. Even that I'd rather not do, but I tried to avoid the cast as much as I could, because, and then even beyond that, playing Victor Crowley in the Hatchet movies, I did it way more, because by that point, I enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious to fuck with the cast and make them think, holy shit, this guy's actually crazy. He's gonna do something violent to me in the scene coming up, and he's not right. So they're already scared to death before we even roll the camera, so I found that very amusing. And it helped the performance too, so I did kind of try and avoid the cast as much as I could.
Well, in my case, I was on the set, and all the prosthetics, the false teeth, closing off your eye, you lose your depth perception, so that's going to piss you off to start with. So let that go for a while, and then at midnight you break for a lunch, everybody leaves, and I'm sitting in this house in the woods by myself. So I was bloody pissed. I was very pissed. So when my moment arose, it was no acting at all. I was ready to kill anybody, and if I could have, I would have. So. I'm sorry there were not lines. You know, I wish Jason said something in the pre-hockey mask era. You know, we could have, you know, we could have gotten to it.
Speaking of that, before CJ says, there were times where, once again, you're wearing the hockey mask and you don't speak, but how funny is it when you're supposed to stare at somebody close quarters and then they're supposed to be terrified, and you say, as I would do to them, say, I have to poop. Just to see if I can break their character. Because you can't see my mouth moving. They get rid of it later in post-production, so. I just shit my pants.
I just, you know, I cut myself off from sex the first day. I was pissed the whole time. So.
CJ, one of my favorite scenes in the entire franchise is the RV scene. Talk about filming that and how that was all set up.
You know, it was a great shot. Most of us, during our scenes that we did that were stunt related, was a one-shot take, hopefully because of the expenses. The mobile home, you got a one-shot. So the stunt coordinator, Michael Nomad, who took that mobile home and put it down or put it on the side, once it was took on the side, what transpired is they set up the fire on the outside. I got inside, they undid the hinges of the actual door, so it would move, and all I did was stand on a couple boxes and squat down like a football player. And when I heard the radio inside the mobile home go action, I just closed my fist on the gloves and popped as hard as I could and got lucky, and the door just went flying in its entirety. And then I stepped up on one more box without falling over and up on top of the mobile home, walked to the end of it, and just gave that ominous Jason stance of bring it. And it turned out to be an amazing one shot, and to this day it's still a favorite recognition where people say that's what their iconic Jason image is, and just that shot of being on top of the mountain.
It's good. I agree. That whole scene was good, but the way he stood on the motorhome I thought was really good too. Because, you know, it's not as easy as you think to stand there and look intimidating without looking like you're acting. Because some people, even people that wear costumes at conventions and stuff, I see them do the stance and they're trying too hard. And it doesn't look natural and believable. So it's far harder to do that than you would think.
That's your favorite scene?
No, that's his favorite scene.
Oh, okay, I thought it was
You
yours.
stay with the story.
I'm
Sorry
I
about
thought
that.
it was your favorite
Younger
scene.
brothers, you know, 25 years,
Because you
30
very
years.
connected with that. I thought.
The question is, that was his favorite. So I answered,
Okay, now it's just-
tell us about how it evolved. So I evolved it.
I'm with you. I'm proud of you.
You want to say
No,
that?
I'm proud of you.
We don't get to pick on him too much. That's why we kind of give him a hard time. So it's a brotherly love, Three Musketeers, you know, so just you understand how this works.
Remember, I got it warmed up for you. And you handed the torch over there.
And I held on to it for a while.
I guess you did.
And then got it ripped out of my hands and given to someone else.
I give you
Boy,
credit.
Mr. Negative, I know.
Yeah.
So, Kane, I just wanted to mention real quick, you mentioned Victor Crowley. Honestly, we talked to you quite a bit. Every other month almost, it seems like we talked to you one of these. I had no idea. How did you guys keep that under wraps so tightly?
Yeah, it really was amazing. We shot the new Hatchet movie called Victor Crowley last September. And Adam asked all the cast, all the crew, please don't talk about this because we're going to keep it under wraps for a while. I didn't think it'd be that long as it was, but there were some issues in post-production and reshoots and stuff, so it took a little longer. But for an entire cast and crew and families of all of those people who had to know what they were working on, to keep it a secret, I think is incredibly amazing, really. Because everybody, in every group, there's somebody that has to blab about something. And the fact that they kept it secret had made it so much fun for us to show up on the 22nd of this past month. We showed up at Hollywood at a big theater for an anniversary screening, 10th anniversary screening of Hatchet, which supposedly had new footage, unseen footage, and stuff like that. So the theater is packed with people thinking they're seeing kind of additional footage and just celebrating the first movie, and Adam gets up in front and talks about why he did this and says it's actually the new Hatchet movie. So imagine that crowd who's already fans get to see, as the first audience ever, to see the new Hatchet movie. And then we were in London shortly after that last weekend, and we screened it again, and Victor Crowley movie got a standing ovation from the huge audience that was there, because now they knew what it was. And we were told that's only the second film in the 18-year history of the film festival to get a standing ovation, so that's pretty cool. But it's really a fun, as they always are, a fun film that has a lot of humor, but not at the expense of the kills and the makeup effects. So very happy with the movie. It's just nice to be able to talk about it now, because you know, for all this time, people are saying, "What have you been working on? Anything new?" Is like, yeah. And especially when on IMDb there would be a movie called Untitled Adam Green Project, and they'd have the cast, everyone except me and Perry Shen, because we've been in all of them. So that wouldn't make people think, wait a minute, is this a new Hatchet movie if we were both in it? So I think it's very cool that we kept the secret, and now it's fun to see the reaction.
I got a question. Wasn't there a documentary that was launched at that campaign also?
Oh,
what was that about?
Yes, my documentary about my life called To Hell and Back, kind of the visual version of the book, also premiered at Fright Fest, the same day, in fact, just hours before Victor Crowley, so that was a fun day for me, but it's gotten a lot of good reviews. I mean, just because, as we all know, it's fun to watch a documentary about somebody's career and all the fun things they've done, but if they have parts of their life story that are something that people can identify with, difficult subject matter, stuff like that, it's so much more meaningful, and a lot of people have told me, you know, they loved it because of that. So I'm just happy to share the story, and if it helps anybody get through something, fine. And you know, it was just it's been an interesting life, not always easy. So I've told the whole story.
So Warrington, we've had Steve Dash on the panel before. Talk about your side of the whole thing, about you were the face of Jason, but then he was brought in to do some of the other stunts. Talk about that from your perspective.
Hello, you all here? Well, and frankly, I don't know where to begin with the whole drama, because I only recall the sequence of events that involved me when I was there. I don't know what happened when I left the set of Georgetown Productions in Kent, Connecticut. So I try to look back, and it's a little blurry, because I'm in denial. We're talking about something that happened in the mid-'80s, I think. I don't want to tell you any earlier, because it's all a blur. But I got cast as Jason, and then I arrived there, and that's how it all began. And then, you know, when I did my scenes, and Carl Fullerton was in charge, Steve Miner was the director, he was kind of in charge, and we were all kids running around having a good time. I'm out water skiing with Kristen Baker, and then everybody's getting angry over that. And I'm like, well, what? I think Miner was in love with her. I don't know. It was chaos up there. I'd never worked on a movie before. I was so excited to even be working anywhere, you know, coming out of acting school. So I don't really know. Then I returned to New York. My life is continuing. I didn't discuss it. I didn't discuss it for the next 10, 15 years. And I got to tell you, there's another conversation, but the dumbest thing I ever did, we were so excited at the premiere, and I'm an actor, and here we go. You won't believe it. Andy Warhol comes with my crew to the premiere of the movie. And at that time, I thought he was just an artist making soup cans on the wall. Had I had the sense to say, Andy, could you do an acrylic on canvas of Jason? You know, oh my God, what that would be today. But anyway, life went on, and this brand started picking up steam. And then all of a sudden they said, well, where are all the Jasons today? And so I was working at Wall Street. At that time, Jason Goes to Wall Street. So then they started lining up all the Jasons. I'm like, oh my God, look at all these guys. I didn't talk about it for 10 years. I was like rocking on. They didn't want me in the next one. And they're going with the next guy. And, Richard Booker, God bless him, and on and on. Then I'm going, well, look at this big, strong dude from Vegas or whatever. And then they had your picture. Everybody's in the magazines. And then I wouldn't even know. 15 years later, 20 years later, Steve Daskowitz arrives on the scene. Well, I never met him in my life. We didn't know each other. I didn't really know. I didn't know there was another Jason walking around up there when I wasn't there. How am I going to know I wasn't there? Now let's really call a spade a spade. I mean, yeah, there was a phenomenal stunt going on. I didn't know whether it's Steve Miner, Carl Fullerton. They worked it out, or whether someone's feet were walking through the woods, or I didn't really know because I wasn't there. And then he comes on the scene. It's like, hey, great to meet you. He did work as Jason. I said, well, great. It was never any controversy. And I always took the position, look, I'm happy you did what you did. I'm happy that I got the opportunity to do what I did. And frankly, I'm flattered and grateful to be part of a huge brand. That guys like this and this, particularly him, has worked so hard to build this brand, what it is today. So I'm just thankful I'm part of it. And I'm not going to get in all this crazy discourse, with Mr. Daskowitz over this. Don't we have more interesting things to argue and do about? And I'm also from the point of view, I'm flattered to talk about something 25 years ago. I really get excited. What can we talk about now? What are we doing now? What are we doing going future? What are we doing in the future? What can we create? What can we create? What can we learn from this great legacy? What did this great legacy and people that are in this legacy, what can we learn from it to do something meaningful, helpful, and inspirational to other people, that are on their journey?
And, I got to add to that, when I started with killing people. And next year will be the 30th year. I'm still killing people. I haven't done shit, have I? I haven't moved on at all.
We have no Jason in the house.
I have a question.
He has to always make an entrance.
Derek!
Fashionably late.
Question? This one's for Kane Hodder.
Oh, of course it is.
If I'm supposed to do a panel, do you think management will tell me that I'm supposed to do a panel? When I'm sitting down to eat?
Hey, I wasn't told either, but I was at my table while you were in the restaurant. And they told me, you have a panel. I said, okay, let's go. Where's Derek? Oh, he's eating.
I told him that he was wanted.
Hi, guys. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. We're just wrapping it up. Thanks.
Hey, he made it.
Here, why don't you sit right in the middle?
Let me catch up. Part 4 is my favorite. Maybe Back Kill Against the Tree was my favorite kill of the series with Kane. And my favorite kill was Aaron Hughes. Okay. I didn't mean to. So sorry.
You made a good entrance. I mean, that is a Jason entrance.
I switched it to, I took my order to go. I ran into Warrington, and Warrington was like, hey, see you at the panel. I'm like, what panel? What? I'm like, he's probably not mine. I sat down.
Well, eat. I said, eat,
yeah.
And then come on up.
And someone's like, I overheard somebody at another table go like, hey, yeah, the Jason panel is going right now. I'm like, am I supposed to, what the fuck's going on? Sorry, guys. So, continue. Enough about me. Let's focus on everybody else.
Just getting back to multiple people playing Jason. CJ, you had someone up Jason in your film. Talk about that if you could.
Yeah, I mean, before I got the part, I was part 2. In other words, I was the second pick. The gentleman that actually got it, and forgive me, what's his name?
Dan Bradley.
Dan Bradley, my understanding, he just didn't produce what they were looking for on screen. So, by not producing on screen, within 2 days of shooting, they got the dailies back, and they said, well, this isn't quite the image. I got a call back on a Friday, and Monday I was there to shoot the film. That individual, there's a couple scenes that he owns. There's a paintball scene or walking through the woods. It's interesting you would say that. But at the end of the day, not only did this person go on to do some great stunt coordinating and stunts, is well known in the industry today. know, but that's how people like myself get a break to be here, and at the end of the day, still that person exceeded high expectations of what he's done today. So fortunate, blessed, but at the same time, these things do happen on set when people don't work out, we get hurt, people got to fill in. Sometimes people are already wrapped, and they come back and do some extra scenes, that they put additions into it. But at the end of the day, I'm just like the other gentleman up here, and the other 5 gentlemen, one who's passed on, that have been able to do this part. You know, fortunate, great to do it. Here we are again talking about it. So that's kind of how mine was. So there was one other person that got those 2 scenes, like I said, and he's notably different than I. But at the same time, the image is what the director wanted, that director's choice. And by doing so, it gave me an option to be here 35 years later, basically, at the end of the day, 31 years to be exact, and here we are.
Right, and that just shows how, you know, a lot of people think, oh, any big guy can play the part, but absolutely not true, because of CJ replacing Dan Bradley in part 6, when I did part 7, John Beekler was pushing hard for me to play the character because we had just done a film together. Had nothing against CJ's performance, but he liked what I had done in the previous film, and there was so many stunts to do as Jason in part 7 that he was pushing for me. But he also had to convince them that I was the right choice, so we had to shoot a screen test on Beekler's dime, just because, so they didn't have this situation with CJ where they started watching dailies the first couple days and said, oh, we don't like how Jason looks. So then they had to go with CJ. And so in order to avoid that happening again, we did a screen test before principal photography started, just to make sure that they liked how I looked as the character. So, I mean, you know, it's not as simple as everybody thinks. You know, it's a lot more involved than you would think from the outside.
So Derek, being a fan of the franchise, taking over the hockey mask, what did you try to do to try to make it your own and differentiate from the gentleman that we have on the stage with you?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a wild question because if all of us in this room were to play Peter Pan, we're all going to do something different just from our own experiences in life. So, I mean, I knew the series ahead of time and I was a big fan, but I just did my own thing. Like you approach it how any actor would approach a role. Like the script is your blueprint, and you go through the blueprint and make your character from your own personal choices. And yeah, I was happy that people enjoyed it. I mean, there were times being a fan, I would do little homages in certain scenes or certain takes. I don't know what they used or what they didn't to the other guys. You know, as a tip of the hat, going like, yeah, you can I'm a fan. Like you guys are amazing. So
yeah, I did the same thing. I pretty much did my own deal, but keeping in mind what people had done before me. So like Derek's saying, a little homage to somebody in the past, maybe fans pick up on it, maybe they don't. But for me, I'm saying thank you for getting me to this position. So
yeah, absolutely, that's a beautiful thing. And that's another thing also, like personally, when people talk about it, like, oh, my favorite Jason's blankety blank or hootie hoo, man, whoever you like, fantastic, man. Like we're all gonna bring something different, and it's kind of like, in my opinion, like art. Everyone's see whatever that film means to you, or whatever that particular Jason that you like means to you. That's 100% okay. It's not a competition. Like the other guys are great. Like if you like, my personal favorite is Ted White. So like what you like, man.
Remember the first scene you filmed, Jason?
Oh crap. I come back to me on that. Let me think about it for a second. Let me fire my brain up. Like I don't remember what was the first one.
He's still at lunch. Give him a minute.
I haven't eaten. I have not eaten.
The very first shot. We can go on.
Let's go on. Let me think about it for a
You said
second.
you don't remember your last kill, Kane, but you.
no, I remember my last kill, but I don't remember my last shot.
Okay, so the Friday the 13th video game came out.
Right.
Talk about filming that, being Jason again. And I understand that you could look at monitors and see yourself in the full costume.
I know. Maybe that's common, but I had no idea that capability existed. That I did all the motion capture for the Friday the 13th video game for Jason, no matter how he looks. So it was interesting for me personally, when I played Jason, I never thought Jason should run. Just because in my version, he was kind of a zombie. So I didn't think Jason should ever run. So now I have to keep in mind that I'm doing some shots from part 3, which is Richard, and he ran. So if I'm going to do the motion capture for Richard Brooker's version of Jason, I have to run. So even though I didn't look like the character physically, because I'm wearing spandex and sensors, and it just still felt weird to run knowing I was doing the character, but you know, I had to do it. That's what he did. And it was an amazing process because I didn't realize that I could stand on the motion capture stage in the spandex with 80 cameras looking at me, and I could look over at a monitor and see myself already animated as part 7 Jason, my favorite. And so whatever movements I would do while I was looking at the monitor, it was Jason doing it. So that helped the performance a lot, I think, because I could see what I'm really looking like, even though I was dressed differently. So I love doing it. We're still doing mocap for the game. We just did another session 3 weeks ago. Another 73 or 74 kills. It was 2 days of nothing but kills. I mean, and all of the other mocap sessions, there was always other stuff. Walking at certain pace. Yeah, I'm sure you had to do that in your stuff, the other games and stuff. But, you know, so there's a lot of stuff in between the kills, but this was just 2 days of kills. And I brought the same stunt people back because they're so good with the mocap system, because it's a different type of thing. You're used to performing for one angle from a camera, and especially with physical stuff, that you have to do it considering it's being seen from every possible direction. So I love doing it. I think the game is cool as hell. There's a lot of fun surprises in it. There's a photograph of me just outside of makeup on the wall in one of the buildings somewhere. So I think that's kind of an honor. And my kids' names are in it somewhere. So both my sons were in the first Hatchet movie, if you didn't know that. They were 2 of the 3 kids that are harassing young Victor when I'm playing Victor's father. So it's kind of weird. They're 20 and 23 now. Yeah, so.
Also, how fantastic is that video game, guys? Like, I'm so happy that Kane came back to do that. It's so rad.
It really is a well-done game. You know, forgetting about me being part of it, I think it's a well-constructed, great animation. And they took so many pains into making references to all the previous films with little props. Wait a minute, that's the radio from part 3, or this is the, you know, and it's so much fun for fans that know all the movies.
Derek, are you ready yet, or should we?
I don't have an answer, man. I don't know. That's if I've been punched in the face too much, or like, I don't.
You remember the first scene, at least?
I don't remember the first scene.
No?
I remember putting the mask on for the first time, but I don't remember, because it was not on set, and Scott Stoddard's shop, but I don't remember what was my first scene. I don't.
Yeah,
I
he's
do
been
remember,
hit in the head too much.
Yeah, right.
That was only 6, 7 years ago, right?
I don't know.
8 years ago?
I've been hit by professional fighters. Are you kidding me? Holy cow! Yeah, I'll think about it still. Like, I don't know.
CJ, talk about bending the sheriff backwards on the ground. Talk about how that scene was set up.
The sheriff was another stunt, the stunt coordinator took care of it, and basically they dug a hole into the ground, let's just say 4 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet, and an actor actually laid down and bent his ass over, and then they took the shirt, put it onto the other actor below.
Did you see Warrington's eyes light up, by the way?
You missed the part about BJ up here. We were this one. It's anyway. So what you have in essence is 2 bodies. You have one person who's laying down in the hole with their head down inside their ass, and the other one standing up, bending down flat. They pin down the shirt, and then it's a bend over on the other one to give you that look as though the body is being broken in half through the massiveness of Jason. Of course, the special effects of the popping of the vertebrae as the body is being compressed. It's a beautiful thing.
And I just want to say something. In the video game, because of that kill, they wanted to do something kind of similar to that, maybe not quite the same. Yeah, like an homage to that kill. So I had the stunt girl who was a gymnast. I said, you know, what if we propped you at an angle against something and I stomped on your back? How far could you bend inwards to make it look good? So she says, well, you want me to show you? And I said, sure, just lay down. And then she bent backwards, and everybody was like, oh shit, that's oh my God, how do you do that? So of course we shot it.
So one last question from us before we take it to the updates. Jason has killed some famous people, from David Cronenberg, Rorschach, Terry Kaiser, Warrington. If you guys could pick one celebrity famous person to kill as Jason, who would it be?
To kill as Jason? Oh, mine would be Derek Mears. Oh, I'm sorry, you said famous.
Mine would be Steve Dash. I rip his friggin' heart out, right?
And I'll break his back.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Spike Lee for me. He turned down my son when he was 6 years old for an autograph, so thank you, Spike.
So, do you guys play the video game, and if so, what's your level?
He's up there. You can tell by his cocky attitude.
What's your level?
64.
So anyway, next question.
I'm 65, so I don't know, man. Check me out on my Xbox.
He put his
handle.
fists up to fight with you. He seems like
I will beat the holy shit out of you. This whole nice guy thing, we will.
This one's for Kane, by the way. Road to Bright Fest was awesome.
I did a new Road to Fright Fest.
I saw it. It's really good. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Oh, I was such a bitch in that thing. Screaming because Chucky was there.
Jason X is my favorite, but a lot of people don't feel the same way. What's your thoughts behind it?
As far as Jason X, or as far as my favorite one?
Jason X.
Oh, Jason X? I mean, to be honest with you, when they gave me the script, as they were giving me the script, they said, we're doing another Friday movie, and I thought, oh, great, and is it going to be what I think it is? Which is, you know, Freddy versus Jason, because we had set that up and Jason Goes to Hell. They said, well, not yet, so we're going to do another one in between. I said, okay. And they said, it's Jason in space, and I said, oh, that's funny. What is it really? Don't be an asshole. What is it really? It's Jason in space. Okay, it wasn't funny the first time. Now, Jason in space? Oh, I was a little hesitant, certainly not to play the character, but what they had planned. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to make the character consistent to what I've done in the past, regardless of his setting. So I did kind of convince them to do the sleeping bag scene, and you know, just for old time's sake and stuff. So, you know, I'm not sure if it's not my favorite, but it's my third favorite of the ones I did. But it is. I mean, I'm honest. I love doing Jason Takes Manhattan because imagine, you know, most of the time when we shot these things, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and there's never visitors to the set, or not many anyway. And all of a sudden, I'm in the full Jason gear in Times Square on a Friday night. How unbelievable was that to have hundreds of people, police barricades, literally, I'm not exaggerating it, NYPD everywhere, and they were holding people back while we're shooting in the middle of Times Square. It was by far the single most amazing day of shooting I've had in 40 years. So that was a lot of fun. So it's kind of, you know, it remains one of my favorites. Jason X certainly had the best budget of the ones I did. So we shot for 12 weeks, which is pretty long back then. Normally, part 7 and 8 and 9 were like 8 weeks. So all of a sudden we had 12 weeks to shoot. So we didn't have to rush through things and stuff, but I still think the movie is interesting, and I love the look of Uber Jason. I thought that was pretty cool. So.
We have another question right here.
All right, gotta say, Kane, Derek, Warrington, CJ, guys are the shit. You are the bomb, gotta say. Whoever that pussy was from Freddy vs. Jason, Ken, what the fuck? All right. Anyway, you dudes are the bomb. This is the Jason reunion right here. Steve Dash, fucking.
I agree. Well said out there.
All right. Kane, my man. All right. For the first time.
Hey, I got no.
He's worth every nickel.
Hey.
Could you say that again?
Fuck Steve Dash. CJ, you're the shit.
He's talking to Warrington in particular with that line.
I mean, hey, we get to see Warrington's face in part 2. I mean, come on, that makes him the best. Derek, you're awesome. Kane, you're God. All right, Kane, my man. For the first time, I just watched Charlie's Farm and Old 37. Which of those two are your favorite? Other than Jason. We've been talking about Jason for a while and Hatchet, but I got to talk about these two.
Old 37, I love the movie because it is a storyline that I cannot believe was never exploited.
What about Frozen? I saw you play Cody on Frozen.
Frozen, I was a stunt coordinator, and I played a character that pissed everybody off.
I
didn't see them trapped. But
that was cool.
Old 37 is two brothers drive an ambulance, and they have a scanner, and they respond to 911 calls before the real people get there. And they take people away and torture them and murder them. I think that's an amazing demographic of people to exploit. You got someone who's in need of medical attention, a loved one, and paramedics show up. You don't ask for their IDs to make sure they're real. You just let them take them away. So I was surprised it hadn't been done. So it's a fun movie. And Charlie's Farm I shot with Bill Moseley in Australia, and had to do a fight scene with Nathan Jones. You know Nathan, right? He's just huge. 6'10", like 370.
This is a guy from Mad Max, right?
Yeah, from Mad Max guy. So we had a big fight scene that took a couple days to shoot, and it was fun doing it. And Tara Reid was in the movie, and that was an experience too. I thought it was funny because one night on the set, the only people working as far as actors go, myself, Tara, and Nathan Jones, the big guy. We're the only ones on the set, and we walk into lunch at this location, and the entire area is decorated with balloons and streamers and everything else, and it happens to be my birthday that day. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. And the director gets up in front of the whole cast, or the whole crew, and says, it's a very special day for one of our actors today, so we're celebrating. It's Tara's last day. That is not a joke, I swear to you. They were making a big deal that it was her last day of work on the set. And I was like, oh shit, I selfishly assumed it might be because of my birthday, but no.
Please tell me you did one of those, like,
yeah, wouldn't that be great? Special day for one of our actors, Tara. Yeah, that's great. I gotta tell it that way next time. Absolutely true.
One last question.
What's Tara Reid really like?
No, thank you. Starting with CJ and Derek, if you can even remember. Now, what are out of all your kill scenes, what was your absolute favorite kill scene that you've done, and why?
I'm gonna let Derek answer that.
No,
first,
he
'cause
can't
I gotta
answer
think
right
about
away.
it.
He's got to think.
Wait, hold on. I'm getting a bad
He's
rap.
pulling the Derek on us. Look at
You guys think I'm a jerk. All right, starting with CJ. Go ahead.
I enjoyed killing Horseshack. I gravitated to pulling that heart out. You know, in those days, they cut a lot of stuff and left it on the floor. They never recycled it like they do today to put into a longer version. So it got really tossed away. But the heart actually came out, was pumping blood, is how they shot it. And it really was a good scene. Just the force and the magnitude, and it kind of got lost. But I'll always appreciate that. And then a close second is always going to be breaking the sheriff's back.
I know I asked you this before, but I don't remember. That very first close-up of you in the grave with the worms and stuff, that was you, right?
That's another example. Chris is his name. He was the special effects guy who did the makeup. I was on set shooting. There was a secondary unit, and he volunteered to have his makeup put around his eye with the maggots. So Chris did that. A young man that did all my special effects. So that's his eyeball, very similar to my green eye with the maggots, and they had a maggot wrangler. That's what they called the guy, with Q-tips pushing him out of his eyelid while they shot that scene.
He says maggot, Warrington.
So, maggots. But I want Chris, again, you got to give credit. I mean, not saying I wouldn't have done it, but I was on location taking care of it, and there was a secondary shot.
A maggot wrangler is the best.
No, these guys are in a league of his own, ripping hearts out and breaking sheriffs apart.
I got questions about the maggot. All right.
Your favorite.
I already answered mine when I came in late. Was the Aaron Hughes slow Saving Private Ryan one? And also, if people are thinking that I have a bad memory, it's just for that. I actually am pretty smart. I got it. I just don't want to get on the internet going, oh, it's Derek. And then, hey, you come to the table. Hey, how are you? Did you sign this? Yeah, I've got numbers for my IQ.
My answer, on three, let's all say it. 1, 2, 3, sleeping bag. Just because it's not a weapon, that's pretty cool. That's why I like it. And it had such power to the audience because they were like, what is he doing? Oh, bam! And you know, that was one of the cases where I actually hit it like 5 or 6 times against the tree, but in editing, it looked better to just do it once and drop her, so.
Actually, I do know you're very smart, by the way. I do know, really.
Thank you. Oh, me?
No,
or him?
You still set yourself on fire.
All right, guys, thank you for taking the time. Everybody give it up for